Well, here it is. Beautiful. But it's closed. Oh, there's somebody on the porch. Built about 1867 by George Porterfield Gates, a mill owner. President Harry S. Truman and his wife Bess Wallace Truman, granddaughter of Gates, made their home from the time of their marriage in 1919. The Summer White House from 1945 to 1953. Okay, they're doing a tour, but you have to get your ticket ahead of time. So I'm headed for the Visitor Center now. A Liberty Bell and a very spacious entrance. Bicentennial capsule. There's the entrance. And there's a very pleasant parkway from downtown. You come along, you go under the bridge there where the cars are. It's like a greenway.
Convention for the office of President of these United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Democrats convene in Chicago to elect presidential and vice presidential nominees. Senator Harry S. Truman of Missouri is nominated as the running mate for FDR.
It's been my privilege to be a United States Senator for the past 9.5 years, and I expect to continue the effort to help shorten the war and win the peace under the direction of our great leader, Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Returning to Washington with Mr. Roosevelt, Harry Truman was now the Vice President-elect. In his first speech after his inauguration, Vice President Truman said,
"If American democracy is to survive, Germany and Japan must be defeated in battle, and thereby taught to respect the rights of other nations."
Surface units of the Pacific Fleet are bombarding Iwo Jima. Aircraft of the strategic airport are now attacking military targets in and around Tokyo.
The operation to be alive on all fronts has now brought the German war to its final stage. There was a time we must continue fighting till the final count. We know our enemy well. We must expect him to fight hard to save our lives.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. President Roosevelt is dead. The president died of a cerebral hemorrhage. All we know so far is that the president died at...
An era has come to an end. For us, it is more like the death of a father than of an official.
This nation has suffered this day a staggering loss. Vice President Harry Truman, who from here on will be President Truman, went immediately to the White House.
The gravest question mark in every American heart is about Truman. Can he swing the job? And despite his limited capabilities, I think he can.
He comes into office office almost unknown to the people at large, and they will await with great anxiety the result of the test that he has to meet.
Roosevelt was a great architect. Perhaps Truman will be a good carpenter.
When people think of President Truman, it is with a mixture of friendliness, loyalty, and gentle skepticism.
No man ever came to the presidency of the United States under more difficult circumstances than does Harry S. Truman.
It would be foolish to pretend that President Truman possesses the qualities of leadership needed by the nation at the moment.
Roosevelt read books like crazy when he was a young kid. He was very well read in history. He joined the National Guard in 1905. He was a farmer for some of his younger years. They owned a farm, 600-acre farm. He became a Mason, and he courted Bess for many years. His father lost a great deal of money speculating, and they had to move back to town.
Okay. It's a good movie to see. Okay. FYI. Okay.
World War II, he became a captain in the artillery.
During the First Battle in France, Truman proved his mettle. He positioned his battery on a mountain facing German encampments across the valley and began a barrage of fire.
We were firing away, having a hell of a good time doing it, until we woke somebody up over there.
When the Germans started firing back, a shell burst near Truman, and his horse fell on top of him. A lieutenant pulled him out, but in the chaos, a sergeant panicked and ordered the men to run and take cover.
I hit the ground. I led the parade. That was the battle of who run? We all run. Captain Truman was about the only one that didn't run.
Truman couldn't contain his fury. I got up and called them everything I knew, he later recalled. Pretty soon, they came sneaking back.
Truman not only commanded the outfit, he owned it. He was the first captain we had that we felt knew what he was doing.
In early September, Battery D began a nearly 100-mile march to the front. Under cover of darkness, they trudged through relentless rain and mud. The men and their horses were exhausted.
There was an order that we were not to hold on to the caisson, so as not to put any more burden on the horses. They were in bad shape, but walking along almost dead on your feet, you could hardly resist.
When a colonel saw some of Truman's men holding onto a wagon, he ordered Truman to punish them. Truman refused, telling the colonel that the men were worn out.
We thought that was a pretty fine act on the part of Truman.
The Meuse-Argonne offensive began in September. It would be the largest land offensive ever in military history. Battery D moved into position, setting up their artillery at Cheppy. Truman's orders were to protect only his own division. But through his binoculars, he spotted Germans aiming their artillery at another American division. Disobeying orders, he told his men to fire on the Germans.
Truman said, "Fire at will. Fire as fast as you can." We just poured them in there.
Truman didn't panic. He had his firing data exact. We knocked all 4 of the Germans' guns out.
While Truman was threatened with a court-martial for disregarding orders, nothing came of it. In the final weeks of the war, the 129th Field Artillery moved into action in Verdun. They fired their last shots 15 minutes before the armistice took effect. Harry wrote Bess, "I brought my battery forward under fire and never lost a horse nor a man."
He had a very quiet sort of way of serving as a leader. He was a disciplinarian, but very fair. I can't describe what the personal magnetism was, except that he had it.
He wasn't a military character, especially. He was like a man getting his family around a table and telling them what he could expect of everybody.
In their short time together, Truman won his men's admiration and friendship for life.
Truman had respect for his men. His men had a lot of respect for him. That's the way it goes.
At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918, the Great War ended. Truman returned home to independence with a newfound confidence that would serve him well in the future. The confidence to lead.
He was elected as a judge in Jackson County. He was incorruptible. He would not take bribes or cooperate with the machine. He ran for senator and won, surprisingly. in the Senate, he had a committee that checked on government spending.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin from CBS World News. A press association has just announced that President Roosevelt is dead. The president died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Vice President Harry Truman, who from here on will be President Truman, went immediately to the White House.
Inside in the historic cabinet room, American policies as formulated by the Roosevelt administration.
This is a Roosevelt funeral train from Georgia. He's buried in Hyde Park. Bess his head. He knew nothing about the Manhattan Project. This is his first 4 months in office. May the 8th be E-Day. This is a letter to Bess. July 25th, 1945. Has that for a headline for things going on at once.
So is the house here? And did we see the house or is it on? Because I really want to see the Oval Office, the representation from it.
This is the news for which the whole Allied world has been waiting. East and West have met. Nazi Germany has been split clean in half.
Victory. But what will victory bring? After 6 years of brutal war, Europe lies in ruins. Its people are starving, and President Truman finds himself at the head of a crumbling alliance. The threat of Nazi Germany has forced the United States and the Soviet Union into an uneasy partnership. But how long can this alliance last? Truman is troubled as Russia begins exerting control over Eastern Europe, but he won't risk sparking World War III. At the Potsdam Conference, he attempts to contain Soviet ambitions at the negotiating table, but fails. Within months of the conference, the Soviet Union installs communist governments in Albania and Poland. Bulgaria and Hungary seem poised to fall as well. Former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill issues a grim warning.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
Some of the president's advisors urge him to take a harder line. Truman agrees. When he appoints General George Marshall as his new Secretary of State, he knows Marshall, a tough, practical war hero, understands the consequences of letting communism go unchecked. In Turkey, the Soviets are pressuring the cash-strapped government, and in Greece, communist guerrillas are gaining ground in a bloody civil war. Truman and Marshall seize the opportunity to challenge Soviet aggression. Truman goes before Congress to convince the nation to get into the fight, but not militarily.
I therefore ask the Congress.
He asks for financial support for Greece and Turkey. He then urges America to embrace its role as a world leader, defending democracy wherever it's threatened.
The free peoples of the world look to us for support in maintaining their freedom. If we falter in our leadership, we may endanger the peace of the world, and we shall surely endanger the welfare of this nation.
The Truman Doctrine, as it comes to be known, is a bold new foreign policy, one that sends a clear message to Russia. Wherever you push, we push back. Truman goes one step further. Under the direction of Secretary of State Marshall, the United States decides to help finance the recovery of Western Europe.
It is a difficult program, but there's no doubt whatever in my mind that if we decide to do this thing, we can do it successfully.
For the next year, the battle for Europe is fought with freighters rather than destroyers, with tractors instead of tanks.
The seeds of totalitarian regimes reach their full growth when the hope of a people for a better life has died. We must keep that hope alive.
Program by program, speech by speech, Truman lashes together the free nations of Europe into a new coalition, one he hopes will be strong enough to break the tide of communism sweeping across the continent. Stalin responds aggressively in Berlin, a city deep inside communist-held Germany. After the war, the Allies divided Berlin. American, French, and British troops occupy the western half. The Soviets hold the east and control all roads, rail lines, and rivers leading to Berlin. On June 24, 1948, Stalin orders them closed. The blockade is a hostile move to force out the Western Allies, but Truman does not blink. We stay in Berlin, period. 2 million people live in West Berlin. Without new shipments, its food, fuel, and medicine will run out within a month. To avoid disaster, Truman must act quickly. He decides to take a risk. Supply Berlin by air. He orders servicemen alongside American allies to fly unarmed planes directly over Russian guns. If they shoot, he knows it could start World War III. He gambles that they won't. But the cost is immense. Stalin believes that Truman will fold. He doesn't, and the flights continue. Finally, after almost a year, Truman's persistence wins out. Stalin yields and lifts the siege. But West Berlin remains an isolated democracy behind the Iron Curtain. The Berlin airlift helped cement Truman's new alliance. But across Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world, the line between democracy and communism grows more rigid, more contentious, and more deadly. Under the constant threat of nuclear destruction, the world emerges into a tense, uncertain stalemate, and is gripped by a new kind of war, a Cold War.
What was in that middle thing?
What little thing?
What's that? Oh, that glass thing. Oh, that's probably something from Japan.
Oh, you mean oh, I wasn't sure what that was.
Nuclear war. I don't know where everybody is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Poverty on Earth. Saving Berlin.
coals in bags like this. That's an expensive way to transport bulk items. $600 flights per day. Wow. Let's see what this globe thing is. There's an entrance. Oh, it's a theater. About the lives of the Europeans and the rest of the world. 30% price rises.
He's a Republican and his wife's a Democrat. And they're arguing with the dog. That's what they put in that headline for the also county. Yeah.
Nobody gave Truman much of a chance in the 48 election. Thomas Dewey was highly favored. He did a whistle-stop tour using a train, back of a train like this. And lo and behold, he won. In spite of some of their newspapers getting it wrong. It's called the upset of the century. A fair deal was the way he characterized his new program.
I don't believe it's a political party. I believe it's an un-American thing. And the thing that I resent the most is that they are able to get into these unions, take them over, they really ought to be smoked out, show them what they are, so that all the liberals that really are Americans can go out without losing a communism. That's my sincere view of it.
Truman and his advisors agree Korea is another front for communist aggression. It has to be contained. Truman turns to the United Nations. He proposes sending multinational forces to Korea. The Soviets hold a session.
McCartney was a fearmonger and accused a lot of people of being commies.
I have come to right to the purpose I told you before I ran to this purpose. Your purpose is to use this to disrupt the most
And then there was Korea.
We will continue to take every step we can to avoid general war, but we will not engage in a peaceful.
General Douglas MacArthur wants 30,000 troops. Truman agrees, but maintains that this will be a limited war to protect South Korea. Most Americans support Truman's decision. But once in battle, poorly equipped American GIs are outnumbered.
Cling to a corner of the Korean Peninsula. But General MacArthur has a plan. Pointing to a map, he says if he had one full Marine division, I'd land them here at Incheon. The move would be daring, an invasion behind enemy lines. Despite other generals' misgivings, Truman takes the gamble and approves the Incheon invasion. At dawn on September 15, 1950, 13,000 Marines land. Incheon falls in a day. 2 weeks later, UN forces recapture Seoul, then drive to the 38th parallel. With MacArthur talking of hot pursuit, Truman and his advisors now consider invading North Korea, not just to protect South Korea, but to unite the country and stop communism. Truman still fears provoking the Chinese and triggering a world war, but approves the invasion. In mid-October, Pyongyang falls. UN forces push north toward the Chinese border. But in November, slipping across the Yalu River under cover of night, 260,000 Chinese troops, a human wave, pour into North Korea. In a letter, Truman writes, "It looks like World War III is here." Advisors also fear that the Soviets are behind the Chinese invasion. The winter is a bleak one for Truman, America, and for soldiers in Korea. Driven back by the Chinese, UN forces retreat. MacArthur presses Truman to strike back, urging a naval blockade of China and even an atomic bombing of the Chinese mainland. When Truman refuses to expand the war, MacArthur violates orders. He publicly challenges the president. Truman is infuriated, but stays the course. Finally, better news comes. At the front, General Matthew Ridgway takes command. He boosts troop morale. He uses heavy artillery to halt the long retreat. Encouraged by victory and new leadership, UN forces are advancing again. By spring, they're back in Seoul. Buoyed by success, MacArthur defies Truman and on March 24th issues a communique to the Chinese, threatening them with imminent military collapse. For Truman, it's the final straw. The president is commander-in-chief. "I was ready to kick him into the North China Sea," Truman remembered. On April 11, 1951, Truman, with the support of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, fires America's most popular general.
I have therefore considered it essential to relieve
The museum and museum store will be closing in 30 minutes. The museum and museum store will be closing in 30 minutes. MacArthur comes home to a hero's welcome. Truman's approval rating, already below 30%, falls even lower. Korea remains a stalemate. While peace talks begin in July 1951, battles rage along the 38th parallel. Truman leaves office in January 1953. 6 months later, a truce, not a peace treaty, is signed. After 36,000 American and 2 million Korean deaths, North and South Korea remain divided, and still are today.
This is a very extensive museum. You're looking out the front. Exploration. This is the name of this, Thomas Hart Benton's. I like that Hawaiian shirt. This is his Mason attire. Look at the pictures of the White House interior being renovated, just gutted out entirely. The second floor balcony was added. Look at the White House. His daughter Margaret. She was a pianist and a singer.
Cars are right downstairs. And once you get right to the bottom, you'll see them.
Were there a ghost in the White House? Truman thought so. Go outside. This is a very extensive museum.
I took the picture, yes, looking for you. I took pictures, and then I came back upstairs, and now Pete's going downstairs.
I like this inner court garden walkway. Check out that car here. It looks like a DeSoto. He had no Secret Service detail. Here's his ID. Was he in the Army?
Yeah. If you want to head right where it says we're right there, that'll be the main module. We're closing in about 7 minutes. Thank you.
And here's his office. Look at that big globe in there. And not a computer in sight. Listen to those cicadas. Now I got to figure out how to get out of here. Oh, the 2 grave sites. And the eternal flame.